What's up, kids from South Hills, my peeps? So, this is Mr. Barley back at you with another video. Do I sound like a YouTuber? Is it too much? Should I say, smash the like and subscribe button, bros? Or should I be more like a teacher and be like, this is how things are in the past? I don't know, whatever. I'm just going to be me. I do me, you do you. Got it? Good. So, what am I going to do today? Well, I'm going to teach you a little bit about our founding fathers and our founding documents, okay? I'm going to teach you a couple of really important concepts about what our nation's all about. So, first things first, what you are seeing in the screen in front of you is a bunch of European smart guys. What do a bunch of European smart guys have to do with our country? Well, keep in mind that our founding fathers were mostly British. And a lot of them were born in America, but they were heavily influenced by European thinking. So, this group of smart people represents a time period in Europe known as the Enlightenment. Now, the Enlightenment was a philosophical movement that had a couple of key elements to it that really influenced our founding fathers and therefore really influenced how our nation has been shaped. Here's the basic ideas of the Enlightenment. First of all, a lot of philosophers writing lots of books about all kinds of cool stuff like how government should function, what is the nature of humanity in the world, what's our place on the planet for, all that kind of crazy stuff. And basically, they came up in general with this whole idea that, first of all, humans have inherent rights. And those inherent rights are, you're born with them. They're essentially God-given rights. And a right is something that can't be taken away from you. And among these rights are the right to liberty, freedom, freedom of thought, freedom of your own personal life choices that you can make as long as you're not hurting other people. The separation between church and state, which is the idea that governments should not endorse a religion, nor should a government stop a religion from being freely practiced. That's an Enlightenment idea, and it's in our Constitution, by the way. The idea that your speech should be free. The whole concept that evidence is how you make proper decisions. Like basically the superstition of the past swept away. If you have facts to back up your ideas, then that's what matters. So that's the Enlightenment in general. And our founding fathers were very much deeply entrenched in this way of thinking. This way of thinking was who our founding fathers were. They were well versed in Enlightenment ideas. So, how does the Enlightenment ideas then translate to our government? Well, first things first, let me get this screen moved here. This, everybody, is one of the most important documents our founding fathers wrote. It's called the Declaration of Independence. Now, you've probably all heard of the Declaration of Independence, but I'm going to give you a little quick synopsis of it and hopefully impart to you why it's so important. The Declaration of Independence is basically a breakup letter with Britain. Ha ha, we don't want to be your country no more. We're going to make our own. So this breakup letter lays out a lot of the ideas that our founding fathers had about what governments are for and what the people should be able to do and why you stink at it, England. So first things first. Well, wait. Yes, let's talk about these guys first. Who authored the Declaration of Independence? Well, it was written by a small committee of men known as the Committee of Five. But the guy who really wrote it, because you can't have 5 people writing an essay at one time. That would be a disaster. So the guy who really wrote it, I'm going to circle him right here with my little pen, my circly thing. Let's go with purple. Go South Hills. Purple. This guy. That's the guy who really wrote the Declaration of Independence. These guys here revised his writing, okay? So that is Thomas Jefferson. Now, Thomas Jefferson was a super wealthy Virginia politician and farmer. He had a plantation. He had hundreds of slaves, so that makes you just like uber wealthy. And people don't like to talk about this, but he had a whole family with one of his slaves. Her name is Sally Hemings. Look it up. It's true. At any rate, Thomas Jefferson was a brilliant writer. Always was. Everyone knew that he was the best writer of the bunch. And so he got the task of writing the Declaration of Independence. And these other dudes here, they pretty much revised it. Some of the guys you see here, you have old John Adams right there. Good old Adams. He became one of our presidents. He was a lawyer from Boston. You got good old Ben Franklin. I'm sure all of you are really familiar with Benjamin Franklin because he's on the $100 bill, and I know I am because I'm a teacher, so all I carry are hundreds. I'm super rich. No, I'm not. And then you have these other two guys, John Livingston and Poppy McGee, whoever, doesn't really matter. These guys are kind of like, I don't want to say nobody, so hurt their feelings because they're really important. But bottom line is these guys, they wrote the Declaration of Independence, all right? So what does the Declaration of Independence have in it that reflects the Enlightenment? And really, how does it affect our country? So that's important. There's three parts to the Declaration of Independence. Part one is the intent. Basically, it explains why we're writing this and what are the rights of individuals and what is the purpose of government. Okay, that's a lot to unpack right there. But in this first section of the Declaration of Independence, it is widely considered to be the most important part because what it does is it lays out from the minds of our founding fathers. Now, it wasn't just a committee of five. This was signed and approved by the entirety of the Continental Congress, which was basically every important guy in the 13 colonies. The purpose of government is to provide the people with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that all men are created equal, and that we have inalienable rights. Inalienable means you cannot take them away. Oddly enough, we believed in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and the guy who wrote it owned 200 people. There's some hypocrisy between the man and his writing. There's no question about it. But the document itself, if you separate from the author, is truly who we are as a country, who we want to be. Sometimes we don't quite reach the ideals, but we try. And we make laws to do our best to keep those ideals alive. They're so important. You know, the whole idea of liberty, personal choice, personal freedoms. I mean, walk down the streets of Twin Falls and tell someone that they don't have the freedom to do X, Y, or Z. You're going to find an unhappy person because these ideas have been entrenched in our minds as Americans. So that's the first part, the most important part by far, the Declaration of Independence. It really is the soul of our nation. It's the statement of who we are. The next one is the list of grievances. Now, this is basically all the stuff laid out by our founding fathers about what's going on that England's doing that's wrong. And specifically, they trash a king, the idea of a king, and King George is not allowing us to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. One of the biggest problems that tipped off the revolution was the Intolerable Act, specifically part of it called the Quartering Act. The Quartering Act was a law passed in England that said, hey, colonists, we have to have soldiers in your country because you keep on protesting and you keep on having these boycotts and these riots and you keep on smashing out windows. And because you're doing that and costing us money to keep our troops in America, guess what? Now they have to live in your house. And that's laid out very, very clearly in the Declaration of Independence. That is not going to happen. In fact, the non-quartering of soldiers by a government is actually written into the Bill of Rights. So in our Bill of Rights, the government cannot tell you who stays in your house. Basically, you're the king of your own castle. Last but not least, the last part is the actual declaration itself. It's us saying we are going to dissolve the bands between us and England. And it actually says dissolve the bands. Basically, we're tied together as two nations or as a nation in colonies, and we are going to dissolve those, split, break away, make our own country. Okay, so, and this is right here who all the people who signed it. One of the most famous signers of this was a delegate named John Hancock. And John Hancock was a very radical revolutionary, and he loved the Declaration of Independence. And, you know, when he put his signature onto the Declaration of Independence, he put it loud and he put it proud. And to be honest with you, the guys who signed this Declaration of Independence, they committed treason because they're English. They're part of the British colonies. And they signed this letter saying, we're breaking away. That's treasonous. Treason's like literally a violation of the government of another country. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Treason is. It's one of the few things in our country that you can be executed for is treason. So these guys are risking a lot on this war going their way. Had they lost the War of Independence, a lot of these guys would have been hanging from the gallows. That's gone, executed. John Hancock put his name up there loud and proud. And he has beautiful handwriting. I mean, look at that. And so, like, it's so amazing that literally another way to say your signature is, yeah, John Hancock. Can I have your John Hancock right here, sir? Can you sign that, John Hancock? So if you ever want to be cool, and instead of saying, can you sign this, just say, hey, can I have your John Hancock? It's a thing. All right, everyone. So that's the Declaration of Independence. Why is it so important? It's not a set of laws, so to speak. It's a philosophical document. It lays out the philosophy of what we want our government to do, what we want from our government. So that's the Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson, main author. Enlightenment ideas. Bye-bye, England. Have yourselves a wonderful day.